And the reason intelligence is in red, for those of you who can see it, is because sometimes I present to the National Security Agency, the intel people, and they like to see that their word intelligence is embedded someplace in this knowledge framework, so I highlighted it for them, and that's why intelligence is highlighted there in red. So my question to you is, if you were limited to these three definitions, which one would you vote for? And you have to vote for one. Now, if I could see most of the locations, I just want to get a sense, and if each person could see other locations as well to get a sense for the voting. Can we go from this slide to me seeing some of the other sites so I can get a sense for who's voting for which one? I'm going to ask who wants to vote for the first one, the rules-based definition. Darius, can somebody else tell me?
Hello, am I heard?
Okay, well I see Mumbai, but I don't see the other sites. Okay, well let's just focus on Mumbai. There's 7 of you there. You will have to be representative of the rest of India. A heavy burden. Okay, but you have to vote. Now, of the 7 of you, which ones prefer the first definition, the rules-based definition? Please raise your hand. Nobody. How many prefer the... Now, the burden's on you guys. You're carrying your entire country now, so don't screw up here. How many of you like Bloom's taxonomy? Okay, how many like the framework? Now, this is typical of the Indian culture. You don't like to raise your hand. Did you notice? There were 7 people in that room, and there were absolutely no votes. So I guess my question would be, which...
It's unanimous.
It's
no,
unanimous.
We did for the last one. We voted for the last one.
Oh, I didn't see any hands raised. Okay.
Yeah.
Just. Okay.
Oh, it was the video.
It was the video. It was the delay. Okay.
That was too fast.
Your hands were too fast for the video. It didn't pick up that movement. Okay. Well, this is an interesting outcome. Usually the votes are pretty well spread. There are people in the group who have an organizational development background, and they were brought up with Bloom's taxonomy, so they would vote for the second one. There are always people in the group that are technologists, and I would have assumed that in this group there'd be a few of you, at least on my right-hand side, on your left over there, sitting next to the computer and on the phone, a bunch of technologists. I would have thought they would have voted for the first one. Typically they do. And then most all of you, I guess, voted for the third one, and that's usually not the case. It's usually pretty well spread. But here's the purpose for this slide. When you go into your organization, everybody is going to have a different opinion about knowledge. Everybody's going to have a different definition about knowledge. I wasn't able to prove it by my little experiment here today, but typically it is proven. So,
you gave us the burden, so
method.
we carried it well.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to the scientific method. I had a hypothesis that there'd be some spread amongst you, but you disproved that hypothesis and said, well, at least in India and Mumbai, everybody believes in the Baraba and Haeckel framework. What a sophisticated group. But if we had some other folks, if there were some HR folks in the room or some technologists, and I assume that you were, we probably would have had some votes for the others as well. But here's the bottom line. In any organization, people are going to have diverse opinions about knowledge. And we have to, as a principle, come up with a definition of knowledge that everyone can buy into. You cannot move forward unless everybody has a basic understanding of what knowledge is all about. So if we go on to my next slide here, that raises the question of the age-old disagreement about knowledge. If you were in a university environment, that'll be my left hand. You'll see it as my right from your vantage point. The general concept of knowledge in the university is that all knowledge is in our head. There's another concept of knowledge, which is that in fact, I should ask you, if I could see your hands raised, I would say, how many of you believe that there is such a thing as tacit and explicit knowledge? Because I'm seeing Mumbai again. This is our sample, or this is kind of a twisted sample here. They always vote alike. Harry and Mr. Chowdhury, if you raise your hand, then the rest are going to raise their hand and agree with you, I think. You have to be individualists now, guys. Okay, here's the question. How many of you have heard of the concept of tacit and explicit knowledge? Can I see the hands in Mumbai? How many people have heard of tacit and explicit? The rest of you have not? Way over on the left-hand side, you have not. Okay. But about a little more than half of you have heard tacit and explicit. Okay, now I saw some hand raised over there on the left-hand side. It's a little poke like that, faster than the 128K I have. All of a sudden, I'm getting some background noise. I think somebody might have their microphone on. Okay, that's better. Is everybody else getting that background noise? I think you need to depress your mic off so we don't hear the background noise, unless you want to laugh, and then you can turn it on again. Here's the point. This school of thought is particularly popular in the universities. And in the universities, the school of thought is all knowledge is in our head. Anything outside of our head we'll call data and information. And this school of thought, the one that I would consider to be more practical, says, well, you know, knowledge isn't just in our head. There could be such a thing as explicit knowledge. And the reason I believe you should accept this one for working in an organization is that the vast majority of people have already accepted the concept, as we've just shown here in Mumbai, the concept of tacit and explicit knowledge. Tacit being the knowledge that's in our head, and explicit being the knowledge that we've somehow or another made explicit. We could have spoken it, we could have written it down, acted it out in some way, but we've made it explicit. Built it into the processes of our organization, for instance. So this is a concept or definition of knowledge that everybody has some familiarity with already. To go into an organization and teach the academic approach means you're going to have to change everybody's opinion about knowledge. To go in with this approach means people will be more readily accepting of it. The point is, neither is right. Knowledge is just a concept. Whether it is totally in our head or it could be outside of our head is just an academic argument. There is no right or wrong. But we need to come up with a definition of knowledge and a way we're going to use that definition that people will find palatable and acceptable so that we don't have to spend years arguing about how you define knowledge. We can get right on with the business of leveraging it. So that's the age-old disagreement, and there is not going to be a solution to that. I've just pointed out to you that knowledge has evolved from the Greeks' concept of the absolute truth to the Middle Ages concept of that knowledge only exists in our head and it's already all known and we can't invent any new, to the scholastic method, to the industrial age, the industrial revolution, where we said knowledge is not even known, most knowledge is unknown to us, let's go out and invent it, to this modern age that has both the information age and the knowledge age in it. And the information age has prepared us for the knowledge age, getting us all the data and information we need, and the knowledge age says, now we can do something with it. But when it comes to the knowledge age, we need to have a definition of knowledge, and there's two possibilities there. You're now seeing my slide rather than me with my hands up, but visualize me with my hands up. And one school of thought is the academic approach, typically popular in the universities, that said all knowledge is in our head and that's it. And then there's the more practical approach, the pragmatic approach, that says most people already, for one reason or another, believe that there is both a tacit and explicit knowledge, and that means in our head as well as in writings and embedded in processes and systems. And so I'm recommending that you consider that to be the approach that you use. So now that we have a sense that knowledge can exist both in our head and outside, let's turn our attention to some attributes about knowledge. And I've depicted on the screen 3 different pictures. The first one on the left, let's say that's Chennai. You folks in Chennai, or only one person there as I recall, believe that water can be described as something very hard and cold. I don't know how often you get ice down there in Chennai, probably not too often, but your definition of water is that it is hard and cold. People in Bangalore believe that it's soft, moist, and warm. And the people in Calcutta believe that it is hot and steamy, gaseous.